Hi there, you guys. So I'm going to do a very quick discussion video. I just wanted to talk about the upcoming movie, The Purge. I just saw the trailer for it today, and to be 100% honest, I try to have a policy of I try not to judge a movie before I've seen it. I will give a general impression of a film, like the way I've typically done with these discussions, but I try not to be too critical about the movie itself before I've even seen it. The Purge, however, is not a film that I'm incredibly looking forward to, which is very weird because if you look at my track record with the movies that it's associated with, technically, like in the advertising, those are movies I like. In the advertisements, they say, well, we have the producer of Paranormal Activity and Insidious and Sinister, and I like those movies. I really like those movies. Sinister was one of my favorite films of 2012, and Paranormal Activity is probably one of my favorite found footage movies. I really like those movies, and I also really like Insidious. Like, these three movies in particular, I love. So by all accounts, I should be kind of excited about this movie. It's not a shitty remake. It's not an idea that's been done to death. It's a really original concept. What the concept is you're in a sort of neo-future America where the crime is at an all-time low and unemployment is at 1%. But in order to achieve that, they have this one day a year for 12 hours where you can commit any crime you want and have no repercussions come about from it. And this family has like this $2 million home, seals it up, and every year just kind of avoids the purge as much as possible. Until this year when they let in a guy, and then there's this psychopathic group of people that are trying to get him and kill him, and the whole conflict of the movie is them trying to get into the house to kill this guy. So, by all accounts, it sounds like a really original concept. One of the biggest comparisons I've heard, though, is that the masks that the psychopaths wear, they look a lot like the masks from the Strangers. I haven't seen the Strangers, so I can't speak for that myself, but that's one of the biggest comparisons I've heard. The reason I'm not looking forward to this movie is because what they don't tell you in the advertisements, at least not until the very end of the trailer, and only if you look closely, is that this is a movie that's being produced by all of the producers from Platinum Dunes. Now, what does this mean? It's being produced by Brad Fuller, Andrew Form, and Michael fucking Bay. So if you don't know who Platinum Dunes is basically the production company that has been single-handedly responsible for all of the incredibly terrible remakes of good horror films that we have seen in the last decade, from the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre to Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, Amityville Horror, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Pick a classic horror film, they've remade it. And all of them have been terrible. The average Rotten Tomatoes score for Platinum Dunes is 20%. That's a really bad track record. And even the few times that they've ventured into original material, like The Unborn, which is one of the first times I've ever seen like the Jewish religion being implemented in a possession movie. Like, I will admit that aspect of it was kind of interesting, but the rest of that movie was absolutely terrible. That's sort of my thing, though. Every time they venture into any production, the movies have almost always come out terribly. These are also the guys that are going to be producing the Ninja Turtles movie that's going to be coming out soon. And of course, I don't even need to fucking say how terrible Michael Bay is. I hate Michael Bay. I have never liked a single movie he's done. Even the first Transformers. Like, I know some people will be like, well, the Transformers franchise, at least the first one was kind of good. I'm like, no, I didn't even like the first one. I still thought that movie was terrible. I have never, ever been excited about a Platinum Dunes movie, and I've never been excited about anything these guys have done. And that's sort of the one thing I really don't like about The Purge's advertising. It's you can tell that the marketing team is being dishonest, because I think in the back of their minds they know they cannot sell this movie as a Platinum Dunes production movie. They cannot sell it. No one is going to take it seriously, and no one is going to look at it. And that's realistically, that's one of the reasons why I'm not excited about it, is because I actually did my research and I looked into it just a little bit more, spent 5 minutes on the internet finding out, hey, this is being produced by people I absolutely fucking hate. And the main reason I hate them is because they're the ones, I think, who have single-handedly brought back the idea of doing remakes and doing them so badly as to just make a cash in on the popularity of a film at a certain time. Like they they basically only did remakes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street because they did not feel like they could bring anything new to it. They did not feel like they could advance the story or develop anything better. They wanted to make it gorier, bloodier, and more nonsensical so that it could appeal to teenage boys, so that it could sell out and make them millions. That's all they're concerned with, and you can tell that's all they're concerned with. They do not care about making a decent movie. They are interested in making a good buck off of an idea that they don't have to think too hard about. The Purge was a movie that is written and directed by the same guy. I think his name is Jason Blum. I think the only reason that Platinum Dunes and those guys in general got involved is because it was an idea that had already been come up with. They didn't have to actually hire anybody. They didn't have to do anything like that. They just basically found a guy who had already written it and had the idea in his head and say, okay, fine, we'll produce it. Hopefully we can make some money off of it. I don't think they're actually concerned with making a good movie. And I would not be surprised if this movie just ended up being more schlock that they've been turning out. The only producer from the franchises of Paranormal Activity and the movie Sinister and Insidious is Jason Blum, who has done a lot of production. He's produced quite a few movies. And those three in particular, like those ones are the biggest in terms of like horror right now. Like if you tend to see that a lot. Like I've seen so many movies now where it's like from the producer of Paranormal Activity and from the producer of Sinister or Insidious or Saw or something like that. And I feel like that's what they have to do a lot of the time is they have to try and find the horror films that have been not necessarily critical hits, but just barely break even in terms of their critical appreciations because Sinister is somewhere in the 60% range on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty good for a horror film. And so is Paranormal Activity, so is Insidious. That's sort of the point, is like these few, and Saw definitely, like Saw is, I don't think it's nearly as high on the critically, but it's one of the most appreciated horror films of the last decade at least. So if you can associate anything with those movies, I think you are instantly attaching some major hype for it. And I think that's all they're trying to do with The Purge. In terms of what the trailer actually shows, the concepts itself, like again, it's a genuinely interesting idea to have this society where crime is at an all-time low because one day a year people are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. It's kind of interesting, but I feel like it's going to go into a direction that I don't like, which is the direction of just gore and disgustingness and exploitation, which I'm okay with it to a certain extent, but I feel like this movie's going to push it a little too far. It's going to go that little extra distance that I don't quite like, so. I've never heard of anything James DeMonico has done before. I don't know if he's done anything before. There's nothing listed for him on Wikipedia. If I maybe do a little bit more research, maybe I could find something, but for all I know, this is the first thing he's really been doing. It's like his big debut. I think what they're mainly banking on is the attachment to Sinister and Insidious and Paranormal Activity. I think that's what they're hoping is going to sell this movie versus just the concept itself. I feel like if they were genuinely sound in their concept and idea, they wouldn't need to sell it the way they're selling it. It's kind of depressing. Because I mean, when I saw the trailer for Sinister, they do advertise that it's from the same producers as Paranormal Activity and Insidious. They do advertise that. But the thing is, the movie seemed like it had a strong enough idea behind it, and it stood well enough on its own 2 feet that to me it didn't really concern me all that much that it was produced by the same people of movies that I really like. It just genuinely got me hooked. I literally saw the trailer for Sinister a week before the movie came out, and I was there midnight showing there just to watch it because the trailer had hooked me. This, you will not see me at the midnight. I'm seeing this trailer months in advance before it's coming out. It's coming out like May 31st, I think. This is way more in advance of when I saw the Sinister trailer, and I don't feel like I can get involved in this movie. I just feel like it's just doing this to be a cash in. I feel like the concept itself isn't strong enough, and that half the movie is just going to be people screaming and running and trying to bludgeon each other over the head. You know, I think for the first maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, it might be kind of interesting to see the build up and to see how these people develop as characters when, because I feel like that's the only thing that might be interesting about this, is to see what these characters are normally like around each other when it's not the Purge, to see how they normally interact with each other in this very suburban kind of lifestyle, and then to see what kind of people they turn into when the Purge happens. Like, that's the kind of interesting thing I can really see about this. Not the family or anything like that. Like, realistically, I don't give two shits about the family. I'm more interested about the human condition side of it, like what people want to do if they were let off the leash. If people were given the opportunity, would they or wouldn't they? You know, the real decisions that people have to make if they're allowed to do something. I think that's far more interesting, but I don't feel like the movie's going to cover that. I don't feel like the movie's actually going to invest that time and energy into developing that. I feel like they're just doing this so that they can try and get some blood and guts and some weird terror out of it, especially with those masks. Like, that's my biggest complaint about this. If there's no crime for 12 hours, like, you can commit any fucking crime you want and there will be zero repercussions from it, why are you wearing masks? Seriously, I don't get that. Why would they wear masks? There's no reason to hide your identity. There's no way that you're going to suffer any consequences. You could murder somebody and you could fully well let them see your face. You could let anybody see your face. There's nothing that can happen to you. And apparently they've been doing this every single year for a while, so it's not like it's a new thing where people have to hide their identity so that their neighbors don't know that they take part in the Purge. Like, if you take part in the Purge, I'm pretty sure they already know. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I think that's the defining thing about this, why I know this movie isn't going to focus on the things I want it to focus on, is because they are more at it from trying to be sick and twisted rather than letting the story explore how humans themselves can be sick and twisted by the decisions they make, versus that they're just going to put on a mask. Like, that really bothers me. Like, it really does. So that's my 2 cents about The Purge. I may eventually see it. I don't think I'm actually going to go see it in the theaters. If I do, it'll be because maybe a friend wants to see it, and I may just get it out of the way. But I'm not super looking forward to it. But if I do see it, I will do a review on it. I promise. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you later.